welcome to my kitchen. Today I thought I'd take you through some recipes that I use to use up all of them veggies that we get from the allotment, okay? Because I think, you know, it's all well and good growing these veggies, because if you're not going to use them, what is the point of growing them? Number one. So the next recipe is a ketchup. I've had loads of tomatoes this year and I've always wanted to master ketchup. So let's get started. Right, so we've got 2 kilos of fresh tomatoes. This is for tomato ketchup. We've got some dried celery, so some celery leaves. Oops. Then I've got 6 chilies. Sorry, 3 chilies, 6 cloves of garlic, and 500 grams of onions from the allotment. These are all homegrown ingredients so far. Then we've got half a teaspoon of ground cloves. Oops. 2 teaspoons of ginger, teaspoon of nutmeg, and 2 teaspoons of coriander seeds. Okay, so for every litre of pulp, oh god, that doesn't look good, does it? It is. Anyway, you do a 250 millilitres of apple cider vinegar. You do 2 teaspoons of salt, 75 grams of brown sugar, and 1 tablespoon of sweet paprika. So that's what I've done so far. So it's looking a bit more tomatoey. I've got to reduce this for an hour. Number 2. So the next recipe is a recipe of a curry. It's a tomato and squash curry. Now this is amazing. You could even swap the summer squash for a winter squash if you wanted to. It all gets blended up, so it's a great one to hide those veggies from the kids. It's a little bit spicy but quite mild. I think it's quite pleasant, but I like to hide lots of veggies in my food, so it is a really nice one for that. You can also marinate it, and I had the leftover stuffed pumpkin quinoa with this, and it was amazing. So it's really nice to couple those ones together. We have 3 large tomatoes going in there. We've got 3 cloves of garlic and 3 green chilies. We've also got some curry leaves. I don't grow these, but a friend of mine does, so she's given me some of those. So I'm just going to put that down on low. 1/4 teaspoon of ground mustard. So this is half a teaspoon of cumin, ground. A teaspoon of chili powder. 1/4 teaspoon of tamarind. Laying off the onions. That is 2 medium-sized onions. I've got a mix of red and white onions there. I think they're really cute. Once again, from the allotment. Doesn't really matter if you chop them in little circles or whatever, because we're going to blend it, so do not worry about it. Put in a small package of courgette as well. That would be fine. It's the same basic flavour, but it will soften down and just make a sort of rich sauce in there. These have got really neutral flavours, so it will just take on the flavour of anything you're cooking, and it will cook right down. And then we're going to blend it. I'm going to still caramelize it. So I'm just going to add the caramelized onions into there. Now these caramelized onions have been caramelizing for about an hour. Oh, sorry, about 30 to 40 minutes. So they are incredibly tasty. I have been adding some water to this just so it doesn't go too thin. And I'm going to go ahead
and reduce this down now and just simmer it away until it reduces by roughly about a spoon of coconut flour or ground coconut. You can use nuts here if you so wish. Ground nut flour would be amazing. I think traditionally it's almond, but we've got someone who is allergic. I'm just going to be putting in some sauteed meat. This is pork, but you can use chicken. Chicken legs would be probably the best in this, but if you're vegetarian, jackfruit would be amazing to be added right now. And now this is just going to simmer and combine. It isn't completely cooked, this pork, so make sure that you are turning it on low and cooking it all the way through. It needs to marry all of them lovely flavours together. It looks awful on the camera, but it's more yellow in real life.
Number 3. So this recipe is a stuffed pumpkin. Now, on Massive Pumpkin, it's one of my Jack B. Smalls. You know, I've got loads of those this year. So it's a Jack B. Small that is stuffed with quinoa, sage, and caramelised onions. It is awesome. So stay tuned and let's cook it.
I have chopped up some onions from the allotment. This is elephant garlic. This is sage from the sage plant. This is thyme. This is elephant garlic that we grew. We're going to saute these in the oil that we made the other day. A skillet here, or a cast iron pan, and I've got it scaldingly hot. Just going to add a little oil in there. As you see, it's smokingly hot. I've turned it down, and then we're going to go ahead and put the onions in. Here you go, onions. It looks like I'm using the camera. So it sounds good there. Okay, and then I'm just going to saute these on low until they caramelise. A Jack B. Small, and we're going to roast this in the oven. Done. That's a roasted Jack B. Small. Now we needed to seed it because I didn't do that to start.
So I would recommend cutting open the top and de-seeding it before you cook it. The only reason why I didn't do that is because I thought it looked really cute in the video. But I gave all of these seeds to my chickens and they absolutely devoured them. So if you've got poultry or animals, they will really benefit from them. If not, you can always clean them up and roast them
about
as
a
a
third
snack.
of a cup of quinoa that's been cooked in stock. The onions are now caramelised. I'm going to go ahead and add the garlic. So garlic, 3 sage leaves in there, and a sprig of thyme. So, oh my god, that smells amazing. I'm just going to saute that and brown it off.
So I just go ahead and remove the pulp from the Jack B. Small and add it into the mix here. I'm just going to mash it in. I find this style the best because then you can have like an even, like every single bite will get a little bit of pumpkin in it. It is easier to do this when the pumpkin isn't boiling hot. As you can see, I've pierced a small hole in it. Normally when I have this at home, I normally don't bother restuffing it into the pumpkin, but I do rebake it because I do think that tastes quite nice. But because I'm doing this, I thought it would be fancy putting it back into the pumpkin. This stuffing will actually be enough for 3 Jack B. Smalls if you wanted to roast 3 of them. I normally make this amount and then have some for lunch the next day, as it makes a fantastic lunch or a side dish for dinner. Ooh, number 4. And this was actually my favourite recipe. It was a roasted tomato soup. It was amazing. I popped some basil in it and it was out. I think I'm going to make this probably tomorrow or the next day and can as much as I can so that I have this to take to work because it was amazing.
Yeah, I have about 1 kilo roasted tomatoes, some roasted garlic in there, and I've also sauteed a very large onion. This is going to make the base of our tomatoes. So I blended it, but I forgot to put the caramelised onions in there. So that's 1 very large caramelised onion, think like a Spanish onion. I've now added about 250 millilitres of chicken stock and some basil. Oh, I didn't press record. Well, I just put the sugar in and the paprika in and some salt. So I'm going to measure out how much more.
This is actually my favourite recipe. It is a roasted tomato. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. Thank you.